Hello, and welcome to the introduction and historical background for the Persepolis game. This is a cooperative game for 2 to 4 players. Several groups can play at the same time as long as each group has their own materials. Students play friends of an Iranian schoolgirl in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The game is based on Volume 1 of Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood. It can be used to help students better understand Iran, its revolution, and the role of women in it. If you aren't too familiar with this history, in the in-class video, I do give a short lecture about it, so you could look at that to familiarize yourself. There are, of course, some potential difficulties because we're dealing with more recent history. For example, I had a student in my class from Iran who very much was in support of the government there, whereas Marjane Satrapi is not in support of that government and frequently was critical of it. So you just need to be aware that you might have some disagreement in your class depending on people's political perspectives, and just be prepared to engage with that. So to play this game, students will need 3 sets of cards, and 9 of each card should be more than enough. There are the victory point cards, and these are typically given if students answer questions correctly. And then there's rebel and orthodoxy cards, and students get those cards based on actions they take. And at the end of the game, that will help us determine what their fate is. You need at least 1 6-sided dice for each student. And it's also good to have some place for students to roll all those dice. A success board is not necessary, but it will help students keep track of failures and successes. And in this game, students will have to make different decisions. For example, they'll have this one. Marjane Satrapi has to decide after the revolution how she wants to dress. And you can see here there's the fundamentalist way, there's the modern way, and students have to decide how they will recommend it. And then you give them a chance to decide, and then based on that decision, you will gain either an orthodoxy counter or a rebel counter. And then we have questions in the in-class video where it asks them questions about Islamic history, and they gain a victory point for that. Sometimes they will also have events where they will, you have to make a choice, and you also have to roll dice to see how things go. So, for example, in this one, Marjane wants to sneak out of school. Do you help her? And then if you help her, you roll a test. And what happens is in a test, everyone rolls 1 dice. A 1, 2, or 3 is a failure. A 4, 5, or 6 is a success. And then the students just add up how many successes they had and how many failures they had. And if they have more successes than failures, they succeed. If they have more failures than successes, they fail. If they have a tie, then they would roll again. So if you have a group of 4 students and you get 3 successes and 1 failure, they succeeded. If you get 3 failures and 1 success, they failed. If you get 2 failures and 2 successes, they just roll again. And they keep rolling until they get a result that is not a tie. If you and then you get events happen based on how well this goes. If you fail, gain a rebel counter. If you succeed, gain 2 rebel counters and a hamburger card. So there's these different cards that have different effects in the game. For example, the hamburger card changes a failure to a success, and you discard the card and you get to do that. And that's just to add a little bit of fun to the game. Other cards have a impact on the ending. And at the end, students are asked to figure out how they're doing. So they remove 1 rebel counter for each orthodoxy card they have, and they count the remaining rebel counters and victory points, and then we go through and tell them how they did based on the number of rebel counters and victory points. That determines their fate. So, for example, there's a political consciousness card that they can get depending on how they act, and if they have that, that determines whether they become a rebel without a cause or more of a kind of regular political dissident. And then once you've gone through this, it's good to have them to kind of reflect on this. What did they learn about life under the Islamic Republic during this time? Questions like that should be interesting. There's also a movie made about Persepolis, and you can find some good clips on that on YouTube. And of course, you may consider showing the movie or parts of it in class. But hopefully this was an interesting game that will help students get a sense a little bit more about Iranian history.